Hi everyone. So in the last few videos we looked at how to find the midline, the amplitude, and the period of sinusoidal functions from graphs. In the next set, they're asking us to find the amplitude, the midline, and the period of sinusoidal functions from equations. Okay, so then how do we now find these things from equations and not from graphs? Okay, so first, let's just kind of review what we did so far. So what I did was I took this function g of x. They're asking us to find the amplitude of g of x using this function, this equation, right? Now, what I did was just to kind of review, I actually graphed this on Desmos. So here is the graph on Desmos, and I sized the window accordingly. So I sized the x-axis from 0 to pi over 2 and the y-axis from -15 to +7. So this is the picture that I get when I size it like that. And so in order to find the amplitude, of course, we would go through this process that we did before of finding some points, correct? So we'll find the maximum point here is 0.1667, or yeah, 0.1667, 6. So we'll take a max point, which is 0.1667, comma, and that was, what was it? It was 6. And we're going to take a minimum. All right. We'll take a minimum point, which is down here. All right. And that's 0.6903, comma, -14. 0.6903, comma, -14. Okay. So when we had to find the amplitude, right? Basically what we could do is, since amplitude is half of the total vertical distance, correct? Amplitude is half the distance from max to min, correct? That. So we can find the distance from the max point to the min point, and this is all vertical, right? The vertical distance. And then take half of that. So again, we're only going to be using the y coordinates because we're looking at vertical distance. So let's do it. So we're going to go 1/2 of 6 minus -14. And that gives us 1/2 of 20, which finally gives us 10. So that is our amplitude for this function. And that is the correct answer. However, if you were to look at the original function, okay, take a look. Do you see this function? Do you notice this value right here in front of the cosine? Well, that's 10 as well. Guess what? When you write sinusoidal functions, the value in front of the function, the trig function, is actually your amplitude. The absolute value of that value is your amplitude. So instead of going through all this work of finding the distance between the y values of the max and the min, and then taking half of that, you could just as easily have read off that number, take the absolute value of the number in front of either the sine or the cosine, and that is your amplitude. Okay, very simple. Okay, folks, let's do a couple more. Now that you know that the number in front of the function, the absolute value of that number, is the amplitude, here, what is the absolute value of -4? And that is just 4. Okay, easiest thing in the world, right? How about this one? Again, it's the absolute value of the, I'm going to say like the coefficient of the function, right? It's the number that's multiplied to the trig function. So absolute value of 8 is 8, and that is your amplitude again. Okay, and then finally, in this last one, again, absolute value, because we're talking about the distance, right? Distance from midline to the max or the min. It's the vertical distance, so the distances can never be negative. So again, -5, absolute value of -5 is 5. And there you have your amplitude, right? Easiest thing in the world to find the amplitude. Okay, folks? All right.